Hello everybody, my name is Gray Beaudry and I'm with the new product development team at Boise State University. And today we are having a conversation with Nick Kawaguchi with Vessel here in Boise, Idaho. And we are going to have a conversation about manufacturing misconceptions. And first I'm going to let Nick introduce himself and talk a little bit about what he does at Vessel's a little bit, and start there.
Sure. Thanks, Gray.
Yeah.
I'm Nick Kawaguchi. I'm the COO and co-founder of Vessel, and we do supply chain consulting work for a lot of various manufacturing companies. So, this conversation is particularly, it touches the heart for me because we do talk to a lot of different manufacturers, and our intent always is to help them get to the next level. And so sometimes we have to make sure that we set expectations correctly, and we make sure that the manufacturer understands what the entire process really looks like, right? From a supply chain and manufacturing standpoint, which I know you go through a lot as well.
A lot of people just don't know what it takes to get a product, an idea, a business off the ground. I think people, no fault of theirs, make assumptions on what that's going to look like, and a lot of times in both of our fields, whether it's the go-to-market side and the more that business deployment type side, or the actual product development and product design side that we deal with, people they just don't know, and we can't all be masters of everything, and that's why we exist, why you exist, and why people come to us. And so a lot of times it's just navigating them through, and I know that's a product of your guys' too, but that we navigate people through that process and just try to help. And Derek and I touched on this. Derek Ellis, who's the other co-founder of Vessel, touched on this in another video where it's all about that supporting that ecosystem here in Idaho, and wherever we try to, US is obviously US made and wherever we can, but just trying to support that ecosystem and be as helpful as possible. So as we talk about that, let's just pretend for a second that stretch your imagination and think that I have a good idea, me personally.
Okay.
Which is probably not likely.
You have a lot of great ideas.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
I need, I have it, and I think it's ready to go. Mm-hmm. And so I have come to you with, I just need manufacturing, and I'm ready to go either get it into Amazon or whatever that looks like, or for us it's like crowdfunding, or get in front of venture capital. That's always a big one, or Shark Tank, or this or that. Mm-hmm. Where do you kind of start, and how do you kind of maybe backpedal someone a little bit and say, okay, what are some of these questions that you ask them?
Sure. So we always start by really trying to understand what their overall goal and mission is, right? Okay, so you want to develop this type of product. Great. Who are you selling it to, right? Have you gotten any market validation? What kind of customers have you already spoken to, right? Are you sure people are willing to buy it?
Yeah.
And if they're willing to buy it, what are the, how do you get to an MVP, right? A minimum viable product, mm-hmm. right? What are the feature sets that you need to have in order to have somebody purchase this product, assuming it's a consumer good, right? And really trying to figure out how much traction that they have currently, because we've seen people spending a huge amount of money on creating a product and then just building 100,000 of them and then not being able to sell anything, right? Yeah. So we always try to make sure that the customer has tested the market. That way you're only out, maybe a few $1,000s or something like that, as opposed to tens of or hundreds of thousands of dollars. It's good to maybe create a few, see what you can do with them, even though it's going to be much more expensive on a per product basis, but mm-hmm. being able to test that product in the market, we believe is really important, because once you get there and you do have traction, then there's a whole other slew of questions, right? In terms of, well, does it need to have certain certifications? Where do you want to manufacture? I mean, I would say that these things really need to be thought through before you get to full scale production, as you know.
Yeah.
So
to answer some of those questions, like what's your market like, you really, a lot of times you need that proof of concept prototype. And it's hard. There are a lot of design firms out there. SGW Design Works is one of them here in the Valley that do a really good job, but they they have a lot of professional engineers to employ, and so unless your project's of a certain size, it's really, it's hard for them to dive in. And so for us, we kind of specialize in that proof of concept phase, which align really well with what Vessel does. Is like, now that we have this proof of concept phase or proof of concept prototype for as inexpensive as possible, now let's kick it off to you guys, maybe develop a strategy on how it's going to go to market, start probing manufacturers to make sure that it can be made at the price point that you were looking for, and then getting some of that market data that says, okay, now that you have this thing and you can make it, do people want to buy it? Because we even have customers that go all the way through to getting a patent and they've never even made one.
Absolutely.
And so it's just that they're patenting an idea and they don't know if they'll even be able to afford what it takes to get it built. So
yeah, and I think along those lines too, there's a huge misconception that people, some people believe that they can just take the design to Asia and they can manufacture on cheap and import it and sell it, or drop ship it, right? That's what you're talking about, drop shipping, right? And while that all seems very simple in theory, it is much more difficult in reality, right? Because, and we'll just take Asia as an example. If you're manufacturing something in China, well, there's a lot of political issues going on right now that potentially could affect the taxes that you're paying, the tariffs. Our company, we always have to stay on top of what the HTS codes are for different countries that we're working with, because you never know what the taxes are going to be and how is that going to add cost to the product, right? Which is why we always really start with U.S. manufacturers first. We always try and get things made in the U.S. first. That is absolutely a primary goal for us, because it's also easier when there's not a language barrier, and when you can maybe just go down and visit the manufacturer to talk to designers or talk about supply chain issues. Maybe they're having trouble getting and sourcing specific components and things like that. And it's not as easy to just find a manufacturer in a different country either, because you don't know if you're talking to some scammer out of their garage or something like that. And even if you do find a manufacturer that has a manufacturing line, well, what does the quality look like, right? Look at the quality data. And so those are other things that we do just to ensure a lower risk.